Good morning. This is Cold Warrior 78. I'm Ron, and this is part 2 of the new rainwater catchment system, the third iteration of doing this. Yesterday, in part 1, we did the not demolition, deconstruction, salvage, if you will, because we never get rid of anything, of the old system, the 9-barrel system. If you look past my shoulder, there's all the barrels sitting out in the morning sun, when the morning sun finally gets to them. And then I've got the piles over there, piles over here of stuff that I took out of that yesterday. I'm going to start today digging the footer that's going to go in between. So, for those of you who haven't seen the rest of it, quick summary of the project. I'm replacing a stand that had 9 barrels in it, okay, 3, 3, and 3, and I'm replacing it with just 2 IBC totes. Strangely enough, fits in about the same footprint. Let me swing this around and show you what I'm talking about. Stand by. So what I have now is obviously a big hole in the ground, but I have my concrete footer over there and another concrete footer down here, okay, where I had, that was the edge, the 2 edges, 2 ends, if you will, of the barrel system. So I had 2 posts sitting on that one, 2 posts sitting on this one, everything else was riding on that. And that worked fine, except I want to increase my volume, so I'm going to put 2 IBC totes, one here, one down there. So right over here I've got a marker, and that's the center. That's 40 inches out, so I need to put a 8-inch wide, 16-inch deep, footer filled with concrete. Let that sit for a little while before I put the IBC totes on top of it. Okay, so that's what we're doing today. I'm going to show you where we get started and then go from there. Alright, so shouldn't have to say this, but it's important to measure what you're doing. Let me show you what we're working with down here. Yeah, kind of right there. So I need a 48-inch measurement, which is what the original footer was cast at. The mud line right here is only 43 inches. It's not 48 until you get to the edge of the old hole over here. So all this junk needs to be dug out and a nice new line established heading up to the other side. So all this stuff along the front, that's all got to go. So, not a big deal. Kind of expected that. Stand by. Alright, so I have, get out of the way here so you can see, straightened up this front, so we have a nice 4-foot distance from the front edge to the back edge. Now, I know you're gonna ask the question, so let me go ahead and get to it. This is a drain pipe, runs over here, from a water treatment system I have in the basement. I'm eventually going to have to dig up the part that's over here. It's about 5 feet of it, goes down to a drainage ditch. Pull it up, move it out of the way, so that when I set the IBC totes in here, that will not be in the way. For the time being, I've just got it shoved out of the way with a brick holding it, because where I'm going to be digging down over here, I just need to have that space free. Alright, so I'm not going to have you have to listen to me watch me just dig. Everybody knows how to dig. So what because of the width of the IBC totes is about 40 inches. I think yesterday I said maybe 42-ish. The ones I'm using are 40 inches. I measured those particular ones, and that's important because there is a little bit of variety in these things. So 40 inches wide. That means 80 inches total for 2 of them. Butted up against each other. I've got that plus an inch or 2. So in the center, I need to put, because I have a concrete foundation footer on this side, got a concrete footer on this side. I need to put one in the middle for where they come together so that that edge, that side, is supported. All right, so I'm only just going to measure it across, figure where the center is, go 8 to 10 inches wide. I may do 10 inches just because that's the width of the shovel, and then dig that hole. So you guys don't need to watch that. Digging a hole is pretty simple. I'll get back to you when I get done. Thank you. Okay, I'm not going to show you all the digging I'm doing because that's just boring, but I am going to show you a couple little things that I found. So let me pan down here so you can see what I'm looking at. Try not to go too fast so you don't get vertigo. Alrighty, so what you see here, which looks kind of white because I knocked the bark off it, is a fairly big root. And then down here, there you go, you can see right in there, that is a massive piece of concrete. So let me bring you back up so I can show you what happened. Swing around, coming back up. Alrighty, so what typically happens, because this is right next to my house, all right, there's the concrete block wall for my basement. What typically happens is when they build the basement wall and then they backfill it, all kinds of construction crap get thrown in there. It's not legal in a lot of places. It's not legal in most places, I think. It happens. So if you're digging right next to your house or any place that's been filled in, expect big rocks, hunks of concrete, and just random crap. So no big thing. Just expect it. The second thing was the root. Even with a house being here 30 years? I'll check the math later. But anyway, we have some massive roots in the ground that run right next to the foundation from trees that don't exist anymore. So that needs to get out of my way. B, you can expect those kinds of things pretty much anywhere you're digging, particularly if where you're digging used to be a forest. But let me talk about something else for just a brief second. Over my shoulder here, you'll see electric meters. My main panel is on the inside of that, and if you follow those tubes with big conduits down to the ground, that's where my electrical service comes into the house. Directly uphill from me, literally that way, is the big transformer that drops the power down to 240, 200 amp, whatever it is that comes in the house. You do not want to dig into that. I have had the 811, at least in America here, you can call 811 and have somebody come out and mark your utilities, mark all the underground lines, pipes, things like that, so that you don't have a problem digging into electric cables and stuff. That's why I have dug this entire project by hand. There are several other projects on the property that I had to be very careful where I went, because while I know how deep they say they went, sometimes you can't take that to the bank. Often electrical systems are put in by subcontractors. They just run the ditch witch however deep they can get it, whatever easy, however it's easy for them. And if that's 6 feet, great. If it's 2 feet, they don't care. They'll just put the whole job down at plus or minus, 4 or whatever the standard is, so they get paid. So you've got to know before you dig what is supposed to be down there in a line of utilities and stuff like that. And if you don't know, first off, look on your house. Where is your electric service? Because they're trying to go now underground to as many houses as possible. Certainly here in the country where things get knocked down, trees fall down the power line all the time, power goes out all the time. So look for your meter boxes, look for the big transformer. It may be a transformer on a pole, your mileage may vary. But find where those things are and don't dig into them. If you have to dig in the neighborhood of them, like I said, first off, figure out where they are, and I strongly recommend calling 811. Again, it's free to you as the landowner. In fact, I think it's free to the contractors as well. Make sure they don't tear up power lines and sewer lines and stuff. but know where stuff is so that when you're digging, if you hit something, you can be a little careful, or at least know whether you need to be careful or not. And particularly if you're going to dig with machinery, as I used to do when I was doing drainage ditches and stuff around here, you absolutely got to know, because you won't be able to tell the difference between a root and a power line. I've seen guys tear up all kinds of things, as has anybody who's been involved in any kind of construction. So know what's supposed to be in the ground, be careful, and just be aware. So stand by. All right, so there is the ditch. Before I start doing the concrete in it, I tamped down the bottom, added dirt as needed to get it nice and level, squared up the edges as much as I could. The two tools involved were a digging shovel, the round pointed one, and the scoop or flat nose shovel right behind it. That's a D-handled short one because I'm dealing with some rather tight spaces in here. Okay, stand by. All right, so the next step is to go get some concrete and put it in the ground. Concrete's getting more expensive, but it's still cheaper than a lot of options, and it makes an excellent, absolutely excellent footer foundation material. So I'm not going to drag you to Home Depot and show you how to do that. You guys know how to go buy concrete. If you need help figuring out concrete, all the concrete companies have formulas online for how big, how wide, how deep, to tell you how many bags of concrete you need, or if it's a big enough project, a ready mix truck or something. So stand by. Hi again. So I got the concrete, already mixed up the first batch. Gonna shovel it in. I'll let you guys watch that. I'm sure that you guys have seen how to do concrete, but in case you haven't, we'll let you see the first batch, and I'll throw the second batch on top. Alright, I do that because I always throw a little bit of water on there. You're supposed to spray down the dirt before you do this. This was effectively mud this morning. In fact, it's still mud while I'm standing here. So I'm not too awful worried about that. I want this to settle nicely for the next layer. So we do this to get it all nicely mixed up. There we go. Alright. And now we'll mix up the next batch. You guys don't need to see that. You know how to mix concrete. So anyway, there's the footer with 4 bags of concrete in it. As you can tell, I'm a little bit short. Calculated up that I actually needed just under 4 bags, but reality says otherwise, so I'll have to go back and get some more concrete. It's okay if that stuff sets up, we can just put another layer on top of it. It would be best, obviously, to mix it all together. You do what you can do. Alright, stand by. Okay, one other thing, for those of you who don't use a lot of concrete, follow the mix on the bag. Frankly, I find that that's a little too stiff. I have just a little bit more, and I mean just a little bit more water. Not a lot. But gloves. Now these are those rubber, you've seen them. They're popular nowadays. I don't normally like these, but for concrete I find it really handy because I can work. I have a reasonable amount of dexterity, and there's a tackiness to this rubber that helps me do stuff. Plus, they're damn near disposable. Normally I wear leather work gloves and just wash them out. But concrete, the mixture for concrete is sand, rock, gravel, little gravel, and Portland cement. And the primary ingredient in Portland cement is hydrated anhydrous lime. So it's hydrated when you throw water in it. And that stuff is terribly caustic. If you're not wearing gloves and you're dealing with concrete, you better wash your hands all the time, because if that stuff sits on your hand, it will start burning your skin. It's very caustic. So if you've never worked with concrete, it's okay to do, just to be careful when you do it. All right, and read a couple of bags, read a couple of books, watch some videos, whatever you got to do to get comfortable with it, because like a lot of things, it can hurt you if you do it wrong. All right, so stand by. Hi, welcome back. Well, it's been over a week now. We were going to jump forward. Let me show you where we're standing with the project. There are the 2 IBC totes. They're currently sitting in the ground. I filled in the top of the footer, leveled everything out. Didn't bring the camera to do that. It sat for about a week, and I was going to work on the IBC totes up in the driveway, but my son came by, give me a hand. It's way easier carrying these things with 2 people than it is dragging them with 1, so we threw them in the hole. I'll just finish working on them here in the hole, and I'll show you how that works. By way of explanation on this, it's fall here in the southeast, so when they started out this morning, all bundled up because it was cold. Now this is fixing to come off, and by the afternoon I'll be back in a t-shirt again. That's life around here in the fall. That's cool. Anyway, let's talk about the project. Stand by. Alright, so in the space that I had the 9 barrels in, you can see I didn't dig it out anymore. I'm using the footers. It's butted up against the retaining wall over there just like the barrels were, are 2 technically 275 gallon, I believe, IBC totes. You know that they're food safe because of the color on the caps and on the color down there, as well as you can see the symbols here on the zoom in on that if you can see that. Okay, so they're food safe. I made sure that they were level. They were, because you don't level that end, you actually level where the footers are. So we got them in. They've been sitting, and they're long enough, been there long enough now that the concrete has cured to a point where I feel comfortable doing the plumbing and the rest of the stuff. So we cleaned the totes out. when they were still up the hill. Washed the top of the totes and everything so they're clean. I'm going to try painting these. Don't know how well that's going to work. My last foray with that wasn't terribly effective. But since these are shaded most of the time, if there's a few scratches in the paint, I don't think it's going to be terribly important. So stand by and we'll start doing those kind of things. But the project from here is to get them painted. I need to put in some overflow devices. I'll show you those in a second. You get the overflow devices plumbed out first before you plumb the input, because if it starts raining and you got an input and no overflow, that's a bad thing. So stand by for a minute. Alright, so we're going to talk overflow here for a minute. This cool little device is the legitimate way to put a hole in the side of something. It's called a bulkhead fitting. And the idea is it unscrews. It's got a reverse thread to it, so it's a little bit weird. But you drill a hole big enough for the threaded part to go through the wall, and then this part goes through one side. There's the reverse threaded nut on the other side. Yeah, the reverse threads are weird to work with. But anyway, so you tighten that down. There's a rubber gasket on this side, and then a harder plastic gasket on that side, and you just wind up snugging the whole thing down to the plastic. The reason why I use the bigger diameter, they make these, well, the more common ones are 3/4 of an inch. I guess they make 1 inch. This is 1.5 inches because it happens to match the drain hose that I have. They probably have them in 2-inch and other things too. Tractor Supply carries these. That's why I use them, because I can get them. Before I found out that they legitimately made these things and I could actually get my hands on them, I was trying all kinds of weird PVC pipe connections that they all leaked. It's ugly. These are a much better answer. So I have to get a hole saw the size of the threaded part. We're going to drill that into the tubs, the totes, put one in each one, and go on from there. So let me go get that and I'll show you how that works. Stand by. Alright, so for those of you who are not aware, this is a hole saw. Alright, let's see if we can fix it. It's literally a cylindrically shaped saw, teeth down here, guide drill in the middle, and it cuts bigger holes than you can cut with a drill. Okay? That's the entire function of it. If you're doing this kind of stuff, you're going to have to get a good hole saw. So, I think this is a good angle where you can see what I'm doing without you guys looking at my butt all the time. So I just go for a point here on the upper wall, about as high as I can get. There we go. And the cool thing about a hole saw is it keeps the plug that you just cut out right here and handy. Stand by. Alright, so popped out the plug, so I've got a free drill space again, and we'll do the other one. And if you have the right tools, it's that easy. Alright, I'm going to zoom in on the hole. So you can see a hole saw cuts a fairly clean hole. Before I put the flange in there, I want to get little pieces of plastic out of the way. Cleans up pretty well. Not terribly difficult to do that. This is the part where you got to have some long arms, or you got to have a friend help you. I prefer to put the threaded part in, sticking in from the outside, which means I have to get the nut part of it all the way in, which means getting, if you haven't got long arms, this could be a challenge. Oh, hush dog. So, there we go. And then, as I said, it's a reverse thread, so you got to move it opposite the normal way to do this. Alright, there we go. And since this is not a pressure fitting, a good hand tight is fine. And there you go. Now I'm going to eventually, when I get done with everything else, put my overflow in here. But that's a job for another day. We have other things to do first. Let's go on to the other one. Alright, we're going to do this one from a slightly wider angle so you can see me wrestling with a silly thing. The other one I could stand next to very comfortably. This one's going to be a little bit more cramped and painful. Well, luckily I have this wall here. Okay, this goes in from the outside. Like that, so I can get my arm all the way on the inside. Yeah, that's... Yep, that ain't fit. Let's see. Move myself so I can get all of my arm inside the stupid tank. There it is. Okay. Get that there. Move it that way. Yeah, you can get some unique cramps doing this. Come on, get in there. Yeah, not comfortable, but at least it's on. Now I got to get it tight. Fight the natural habit to go in the normal direction of things. And there we go. Tight as I can wrestle it. Try not to trip getting out of there. Glasses and stuff again. So, I am 5'10". If you're a lot shorter than 5'10", your arm's not going to be big enough to do that. Let's let me show you a little bit here. All right, I'm 5'10". My arm was in that thing literally up to my shoulder, trying to get the nut on the back side of that fitting. If you're much shorter than 5'10", you need to get somebody who's taller, because there's just no way to reach in there other than to do that. So, one of the downsides. Anyway, so I have the two overflows in here. Stand by, we'll show you the next step. Alright, so I have masked the stuff I don't want to paint on the IBC tote. A lot of people will paint the plastic part itself out away from the steel and then put it back inside. I'm not really worried about if the steel gets paint on it or not. This is not a fancy paint job. It's the job of paint or whatever covering you put on a water container is to stop the sunlight from penetrating the edge of the container and getting to the water on the inside, because that promotes algae growth if the sunlight gets in there. So color doesn't matter. A lot of people use black because it's basically supposed to stop every color. The barrels were blue. That was built into their system way back when. So I'm going to try a couple different colors and see if it matters. First off, though, I am going to use a primer. I did not use a primer last time, and the paint scratched off very, very easily. So I've got a couple of couple of ways I'm going to approach this. I've got a Krylon Fusion plastic primer for plastic. I have a Rust-Oleum primer that's supposed to be metal and plastic, and then I've got your standard you can't see that very well, rusty metal Rust-Oleum primer. Don't know which is going to work best, so I'll use all of them and see. Again, I'm not really worried about colors and looks. I want to get a primer coat on, and then depending on what colors are on sale or what colors I have hanging around, that's what it's going to wind up. So don't critique my art. Alright, we're going to start with the Krylon stuff on top and see how that spreads. Got to keep these things shook up. You guys still see that? Yeah. It's not covering as well as I kind of expected, but then again, a lot of primers don't. There's an awful lot of plastic still showing through here to my eye. I don't need to put you through that whole thing. You know what spray painting looks like. I'll catch up with you in a minute. Alrighty, so I finished the can of Krylon Fusion. The primer it covered okay, I guess. Again, I'm not worried about getting paint on the steel or aluminum, whatever that is. I'm just trying to cover this. The primary sun comes from behind the camera this way, so it's this side and the front, and to a lesser extent the top that are the most important. So I'm going to work on the other two colors of primer. I'll get back to you in a couple minutes. Alrighty, it's pretty easy to tell. That was the Krylon, which is black. This is the Rust-Oleum 2X primer. It's gray. I had already used the other can partially, so I don't want to necessarily talk about coverage, but I still got plenty in this can, and I've done a lot more square footage with it, and it seems to go on a little bit more uniformly, although that may just be me. I don't use spray cans a lot. I seldom, and I'll bring this back up so you can see me. I actually seldom work on metal or plastic. I'm almost always working on wood, and I paint wood with a paintbrush and whatever varnishes, stains, or whatever, you know, goes on with that. So I almost never spray anything, so my expertise with rattle cans is really kind of nil. But that coat went on fairly well, and it looks like it's holding. Yeah, we'll see. going to start working on the other one. Alrighty, so I finished the can of Krylon Fusion. The primer it covered okay, I guess. Again, I'm not worried about getting paint on the steel or aluminum, whatever that is. I'm just trying to cover this. The primary sun comes from behind the camera this way, so it's this side and the front, and to a lesser extent the top that are the most important. So I'm going to work on the other two colors of primer. I'll get back to you in a couple minutes. Alright, so putting a second coat on of real paint. This was that 2X primer that I was using. This is one of those bare with the little top on it, called Paint and Primer. I don't know if this is actually twice as much as what's in here, but this has substantially less than what's in here. I can attest to that much. This little thing just did the top of one and started doing the top of the other and died. So not more than about 20-25 square foot coverage before this one crapped out. So I'm learning a lot about paint. Stand by. Okay, so what you see here is 2 coats of paint with a touch-up with a partial third. And then the 2 overflow hoses, one here and one on that one. Let me zoom you into what those are so I can show you what we did. Alrighty, so we had the bulkhead fit. I'm sorry it's all black. I should have done this when it was still primer gray. This is the black fitting that we put in that I was struggling with. Then we screw into that a barbed fitting. It actually comes with the drain hose. Just screw it in hand tight, put the clamp on it. For an overflow, that's fine. You're not doing pressure kinds of things with that anyway. Alright, so while I let the last coat of paint dry on this thing, I'm going to start working on the outbound side of the plumbing. Now, since I use these principally to connect to a hose, connect to a pump, and then pump that water uphill to where the actual gardens are, instead of being able to, unfortunately, can't do gravity feed coming out of here, there's a little bit of plumbing involved. If you remember the other system, where I had 3 barrels with this long pipe manifolded together and a big valve, that was more hassle than it was worth. So what I'm going to do is on each one, it's going to get one of these fittings. Now this is not a Home Depot kind of thing. This is a specialized barrel superstore where I bought the IBC totes. Gets these. It's got the very coarse thread on it that fits on the bottom of the IBC tote. I forget the name of it, but it's not a standard pipe thread. It's a very, very rough thread. And then this particular one is a 3/4 inch hose adapter. And on top of that, I'm going to put a brass angle for the hose because these things are coming out into a ditch. All right, and then on to that, a short section of hose. Now obviously I'll tighten them up a lot more than this when I get done. But a short section of hose. This is 4 feet long or so. It's just enough to get it from the container out here to the lower end. I'm just going to zip tie them to the posts so that they're available. I will use the valve, most likely here, for most of the on-off action. This little brass, let me get it closer here, little brass angle. It's designed for garden hoses. You guys have seen these before. These things are in Home Depot. You know, off, on. That's easy to do. I don't have to deal with the really big 2-inch valve then. I just leave it open, leave that in the closed position when I don't want it. And then I'll have 2 hoses, 2 little short stubby hoses that come over to here, and then I can attach the double-ended female that I use for the suction end of the pump to attach to either of these, whichever one I want to work at the time, and then drain it wherever. Or for whatever reason, if I need to maybe fill up the chicken water barrel because something happened there, I can just put a regular hose on this and be done with it. All right, so here you see the, where are we? Oops, sorry, finger in the wrong place. There's the fitting, there is the angle hose adapter, and then there's the little stubby hose. So just screws on. You don't even need to put pipe thread or anything on it, because all the hose fittings have gaskets attached to them anyway. So it just makes things simpler, less likely to fail. Okay, sorry it took so long to get the rest of this done. I wanted to give you a final look at the water catchment system. This is one of the two IBC totes. So it's right here behind me. Stand by, let me get you a better shot of that. Alright, so here's the plumbing coming in. It's really very simple compared to the other one. Just two 2-inch PVC pipes fitting into the top. As you come up on this, you can see that I've got a screen around it. That's just sitting there. This has been running actually for 2 months now. And yeah, you get a little bit of crap coming out of here. That's why I have one of the reasons I have a doubled up screen. Just wipe that off occasionally. It keeps that from going into the tank. Predominantly though, the screen is there to keep the mosquitoes out. The same thing over here. Again, there's some little bit of crap in there we can wipe out. You do that every couple of weeks. Keep the junk out of it. But it's very simple. It works really well. And the paint, at least for the first 2 months, seems to be holding up very well. And let's see. Oh, well, we already talked about the connections down here on the bottom. So that's basically it. Let me come whoops, the other way. Let me come pan back out here so you can see the whole arrangement. So assuming that these things are allowing me to have about 275, or out of 275 I got about 250 gallons. So between the two of them I have 500 gallons. That's already, just with these two tanks, 50 gallons more than I had with the 9-barrel arrangement that fit pretty much in the same space. Alrighty, so I'm looking forward to the springtime when the garden starts back up again, because we water out of these things. We don't water out of our well. So stand by. Okay, so thanks for watching. If you have any questions, drop me a line here, and we'll go from there. But it's working, and that's when the bottom end really all it really matters. So it's Cold Warrior 78 saying get back out in the woods, or grow some food, or do whatever you do. But get out and do something, okay? Practice your skills. Bye-bye.